This is the sweet sound of success with Sue Wilhite, Profit Attraction Master. Victoria Ruke, president of Ruke Studios, is a filmmaker, brand architect, and mental health advocate who teaches both on and off stage mentoring creative entrepreneurs in the pursuit of their careers. Her podcast, Life, Camera, Action, is all about empowering creatives with the best business practices, industry tips, and creative mindsets so that anyone can accelerate their success in their craft. Welcome, Vic.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So we were both saying before we hit the record button how excited we've been to be on this show together.
Yes.
I have been anticipating this for weeks.
Thank you, me too.
I can't wait to get going on this. So, and I'm very sure that your little intro bio is just, a tiny bit of what it is that you are and what you do. So, Victoria Ruke, what was your ordinary beginning?
So I don't know if my beginnings were quite ordinary. I think there are probably some ordinary moments, and I think I was really blessed to have quite an extraordinary mom and dad and upbringing, and a lot of really cool opportunities that allowed me to get to the places that I get to live in today. Big Disney people. Lots of Disney trips. That was a big thing. We grew up. It was funny. I saw this this meme that was saying something to the effect of, "You don't make memories around an Xbox," and I was like, "That's not the same for our family." And we would have full. We're big video gamers, and so we have full Minecraft tournament weekends or Mortal Kombat and that sort of thing. We play video games as a family, on a regular basis. And so it's funny because I'm like, oh my gosh, some of my favorite memories have been us all gathered and playing. I mean, I remember even going to school, there would be a new game that my dad and I were looking forward to playing, and I'd be at school and I'm like, oh my gosh, the game's coming out this weekend. We're going to spend all weekend playing it, just dad and I. And so I feel like those things that were so normal to us were actually in a way quite extraordinary.
Well, they brought you together.
Yeah, I mean, lots of memories, lots of fun things with that,
Whereas with other people, I can think of some people that I know for whom Minecraft in particular is a separation.
Yeah.
Because they do it, the kid does it, and the parents don't. And so it's the kid going off in his room and, playing Minecraft for hours.
Yeah, well, and I think in a way, video games can be very isolating if you allow them to be, but it's really just how you position it, how you choose
to whole family is into it.
Yeah. Our whole family was into it, and then we would have, my dad's a huge Star Wars person, and so we grew up making bases out of cardboard and styrofoam and old milk jugs that we would wash out, and we would spray paint, and I was using some very little power tools as a kid, and we would make these huge bases that he would have to store on the wall, on their side rather than on a table, because they were just massive.
Wow.
Lots of weekends spent doing that.
Craft night.
Yeah, it was a version of family crafting. Yeah, that was the theme. And I was a part of lots of art stuff. So art classes, music, choir, drama. So we've always been very plugged into the arts and all of that. I joke that I'm the athlete out of the family because I was the only one out of us that played a sport, and that was volleyball, which I was actually very good at and loved a lot. I was libero, so I was the one that got to roll around on the ground and stuff all the time and do all the dives. But yeah, so I'm the athlete out of the family. We're really just artists at our core, every single one of us. So yeah, I mean, it was just, my upbringing was very much involved with arts, extracurricular things. I loved school. I was the one that lied about not being sick so that I could go to school. Yeah, I wasn't quite the student that was like, wait, what about that pop quiz? But I genuinely loved school, and I still love to learn. I watch courses all the time. I'm always involved in like little classes and stuff on the side. I love learning. And so that I feel like is probably the most like boring part about me. It's just how much I loved being a part of school and learning and doing all of that. And yeah.
Yeah. So what made the transition between that whole environment and saying, okay, I want to start my own business. I want to start earning money, and I don't want to go flip burgers.
Yeah.
or be a line checker at your, down the road neighbor at Disney.
Right. Yeah. So I am from a line of entrepreneurs. I got my first job at 17 at Ulta, which is a makeup store for those of you who don't have one near you. And that was my first job. I did great. I loved it. I got to work with tons of people, learned a lot more about makeup, which is something I'm really into. Learned sales techniques because I got to be one of the salespeople too over in the prestige section, which is where the high-end makeup is sold. I was up for management. I was going to be the youngest manager there, and there was some politics and stuff that got in the way, and I was not able to take up that opportunity. And so I was like, you know what? I don't really know how I'm feeling about being capped by someone else's limitation.
Right.
And then I found out, oh my gosh, like there's the risk of me not getting to spend Christmas Eve with my mom. Like, I was like, I'm supposed to be at home with my mom and my dad for Christmas. And so at 17, of course, that was quite some culture shock. And so when I realized, I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to spend the holidays away from my mom and my dad, my sisters and stuff. I decided like, all right, well, what would be my other options? Like, how would I transition into entrepreneurship? And I started doing Mary Kay because one of my friends was involved in it, and she invited me to come and do one of the facials and stuff. Right. And so I got there, she did it. I loved the quality of the makeup because I was working at Ulta. I knew how to compare it to things. Right. I knew the price range. Yeah. Like, so it was a really good setup, truly. And so then I secretly bought into one of the highest packages you can get with my graduation money that I had been saving up. And so I just graduated high school right before I worked at Ulta, did that for about a year. And then right around the year point, that's when I started transitioning into Mary Kay. And my parents at that time were moving to Orlando. We were living in Fort Myers at the time. So they were moving into Orlando. I was finishing up my AA for school in Fort Myers. And so I moved in with my grandma. I took over her living and dining room with just tons of Mary Kay stuff. And I had people over there and doing their makeup. But you know what? It was so funny because she was like, this is just like your dad living here. All of him and his art supplies and all that stuff. So I just followed right into those footsteps.
When she thought she was, done with stuff being.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. As soon as she thought that, there I come. And so I loved doing that. I turned the proceeds from that company into my own company with my own branding and all of that because I wanted to have more freedom for the marketing, and appropriately so. With Mary Kay, you have to get all the stuff approved and, just like that. They don't want you putting their logo on stuff that you're making on the side.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're
so
very protective of their brand and for very good
reasons. Sense. Yeah, makes sense. So I decided because, I had such a marketing background with my dad and I knew marketing, I was like, well, I want to have the freedom to do what I want to do with it. So I turned the proceeds from that into my own company called Beauty Bird. And that was a makeup company where I was an image strategist, and I worked with business women primarily to create looks for different business settings. So if they were in a networking setting, we created a look that was going to be very friendly and approachable and warm. And then if they were going to be pitching to investors or closing on sales and that sort of thing, we would create a more authoritative look with some darker colors, some sharper features, that sort of thing. And so, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I love psychology. That's something I'm really passionate about. And so it was a fun way to blend a lot of the things that I loved, which was business and makeup and psychology and working with people. And so that was kind of the next step. So I went from Ulta, then turned that into Mary Kay, and turned that into Beauty Bird. And my biggest passion in life has always been filmmaking. So I was dabbling in it on the side, being the age I was, trying to figure out like, how am I going to go about doing this, when I don't have like a full film crew,
Right.
like at my disposal, right? Figuring out, where my strength is, because filmmaking, there's so many different aspects you can get involved in, there's definitely not just, one thing. There's so many different avenues you can take in that career. And so in the meantime, I was working with my dad under his marketing agency and playing with the cameras and the storyboarding and the script, and really fell in love with that. I love directing and I love script writing. And the movie, the reason, so I always knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. I just didn't know which part of it yet. And the moment I knew that I wanted to be in film in some sort of aspect was I was maybe like 8, 9, something like that. And I was watching Pirates of the Caribbean, which huge Johnny Depp fan. I'm not gonna lie. Totally fangirl over that. So I love Pirates of the Caribbean, love Johnny Depp, and there's this one scene in the first movie, Pirates of the Caribbean: Curse of the Black Pearl, where they're talking about the Black Pearl. It's coming into the harbor, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's the pearl. And they're like, oh, I've heard stories. She's never left any survivors. And then Jack Sparrow goes, no survivors. Where do the stories come from, I wonder? And I was like, my mind was blown. As like a little kid, I was like, that's the most amazing line. That's so true. And from there on, I knew, I was like, I want to be someone to write those mind-blowing lines. Like, I want to create these stories that are like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's such a great point, And so that was one of the things that just triggered it, where I was like, yes, like that's what I want to do. And so as I got older, I started writing scripts of my own. I love period dramas. I love history. So I love infusing that in there. Part of the nerd. Yeah, part of the nerd, part of the learning stuff. I love that. I always joke that I was born in the wrong century, because I feel so at home in like the 1800s.
Right.
Not that I've actually ever been there, of course. I do appreciate some modern technology.
Right.
It might be all big talk.
Bathrooms.
Exactly.
Just see with the internet. Yes. We'll
yeah. And so I started writing the scripts for that. And as I was writing scripts, I told my dad, I was like, I really want to be pursuing this full time. Like, I want to not focus on all the other things that might be distracting me. I want like this to be my full-time career. And so we had, because he's a writer too, we had a lot of different properties that we could look at, and intellectual properties, I mean. And so we kind of lined them up, and he had one that he had been working on when I was a kid. He was writing in this like novel format, and took it. It was kind of like his life testimony. And it was out of all the projects, it was the one that was in its most maturity. It had the most things developed. There was already some protection on it, like for the intellectual property itself.
Right.
And so that's the one that we chose. And so we started working on that and turned it into, I was the one that took it from the format that it was in, turned it into a deeper novel. We created the series for it, working on the screenplay for it. We created performances and started selling that right away so that we could secure the trademark and all that. So it was really cool, because even through that, I got to learn a lot of business experience with it, figuring out, like trademarks, like that's a lot. That's a big subject matter.
Huge.
And so, and so getting to do that with him was really cool. And so that's something that we're working on right now, and growing that brand even further. And that's kind of my process of how I turned into, like, I guess, a real entrepreneur.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. What a story.
Thank you.
You and your dad I interviewed earlier. Somebody can go watch that if you want. But the theme that I see between the two of you is really supportive parents who said, you want to create? Go create.
Yeah.
Go do what you want to do.
Yeah, no, I had really, really, really supportive parents. And the secretly part of the Mary Kay purchasing into one of the packages, the only reason my dad was mad at me at all for that was because he was the one that wanted to fund it, and I didn't give him the opportunity. Yeah.
Right,
And so even then, like even in the secret moments of me spending my graduation money into my first business, he was like, you know what, I understand, like it's okay. And so it was funny, I remember the phone call and he'd be like, you did what? And I was like, yeah, it's just no big deal, it was just, you know, like this amount of money, and it's just my graduation, but it's okay, it's fine. And he's like, what? He's like, I would have done that for you. I was like, no, it's okay, like this is my thing, like I want to put into it, you know, I want this to be like really mine. Yeah
2 feet, as it were, and like, no, I want to own this.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So with all of that, you've got supportive parents and you've got all this creativity coming out the pores, as it were. You still probably had, I'm guessing, some big hairy monsters.
Yeah, for sure.
Challenges. So what were some of the challenges, and what did you do?
Yeah, so one of the funny challenges that I think it plays into my story really well is I wanted to go to film school. One of the reasons I chose Orlando, and I did my portfolio. I was specifically trying to get into UCF film school because it's one of the best ones in the state, and had a lot of friends that were going to UCF too. And so I was like, oh my gosh, that's like perfect next step, right? I applied right after I graduated from my AA down in Fort Myers, and put together my portfolio, got all the stuff in, did the deadline, got rejected. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, no, come on. Like, I know this is where I'm supposed to be. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. Like, I would love these people to be a part of my journey. And so then I was like, you know what? It's fine. This next year, I'll work on my portfolio even more, and I'll build it up even more. So the next year came around, I applied again. I went all out. I had amazing photography. I had graphite drawings that I did. I can show you one that I'm working on right now. You'd like it a lot. I had a cover of a graphic novel that I designed that I was writing. And so I designed the mock cover for it. So freaking cool. There are characters in it. There was like even the ISBN. It was legit. I had footage in there from a video that I was working on. You could also put in your resume list. And so I included all the projects that I have been a part of. So all of my directing, writing, storyboard, like everything. And I got rejected again. And I was like, oh my gosh.
What were they thinking?
That's what I said. Yeah, no, we were in, me, my husband, at the time, my boyfriend, and my dad were in New York for a business conference. And we were, it was crazy. It was, speaking of movie, it was just like a movie. We were sitting there in Broadway. We were watching a Cirque du Soleil show, and it was getting ready to start. And that whole week that's the week that I was going to be finding out if I had gotten in or not. And I'm thinking, like, I know I got in. I freaking made the most killer portfolio. Like, it covered all my bases. Like, it was awesome. And of course, like, because I loved school, I had great GPA, so that wasn't a problem either. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like refreshing my email all week. Didn't hear anything yet. And then like 5 minutes before the show was about to start, I hit the email, which was a horrible idea, right? Like, I should have waited afterwards anyway. Right. So I opened it, and it was like, you know, unfortunately, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, everything was like blacked out around me. Yes. Like, I was just so focused on this email, and was like, how in the world did this just happen? Like, I felt so gutted for a moment. Right. Right. So throughout the whole performance, I'm sitting there in my seat, like paying attention to the show, focusing on what was going on, trying to still be present with everything, because I was super excited to be there. I'm a huge Cirque du Soleil fan. And I was just like, this, you know what? It is what it is. I'm just going to make the best out of it. And so I didn't say anything for a few minutes to Justin or to my dad. I was just kind of...
You must have been dying inside.
I was really, really upset. And so I was just thinking through it, trying to fight back the tears, because I'm like in a public place. And so I'm like, I'm not going to cry right now. It's okay. And Justin and my dad were both like, listen, it's okay. Like, we're going to figure it out. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And so then after thinking about it, I was like, you know what? I know this is still my direction. I know this is something I'm still passionate about. This is still what I want to be doing. So I'm just not going to be thanking them when I win my Oscar. And that was the way I was processing. I was like, that's just
yeah,
just
they totally lost the opportunity to work with you.
Thank you. Yeah, but you know what? And I really wanted to go to get a lot of like the technical learning. I have great theoretical learning as far as concepts and the storyboarding and all of that. It was really the camera stuff that was my biggest insecurity as a filmmaker, because you really get that by touching all the different cameras and stuff. And so I had my cameras and I knew how to use mine, but I wanted to have a fuller experience with knowing how to use a wide range of equipment. And so that was one of the biggest things. And so at the end of that, that's when I was talking to Dad about it and was like, this is, I'm not taking this as a sign that this isn't the route I'm supposed to go. And I'm very grateful that I didn't take that as a sign. I didn't use that as a way to discourage me off of my path. And so that is where Ruke Studios was formed. We were both like, you know what? We've got stories. We don't need college to tell us the stories and how to tell them. Like that we have plenty of. And worst comes to worst, we hire a camera person if I can't figure it out. So, you know what I mean? So, I'll learn from YouTube a little bit and I'll take courses, in other ways. And then, we'll have crews. So yeah, so that was a really, really, really big challenge of just, claiming to be a filmmaker and then being told not once, but twice by the same place that it just wasn't going to work out. But at the same time, I think because of that, I had a lot more opportunities to work on in that time period than had I gone to school, and of course there probably were a lot of opportunities that I didn't get to be a part of because of school. But I think that at the end of the day, things happen for a reason. And I've gotten to grow a lot because of it and got to create a lot of connections outside of that, that during that time I was, instead of being at school, I was really going and getting like on the job experience and working with entrepreneurs, creating promotional videos, e-courses, doing a lot of business shoots is a big thing because I love business and marketing. So that was a really great way for me to get experience that way too. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So obviously your dad, your husband, your mom, and probably the rest of your family were some of your greatest allies, obviously.
For sure. Yes.
Anybody else who supported you in all of this?
So I have to brag on my husband for just a second with that, because we have been together for almost 7 years. We've been married for coming up on 2. So we were best friends in high school. He knew me as like kind of like we were just kids, and then, growing up and stuff. And one of the challenges that I faced a few years ago was I got really, really, really sick. Just randomly passed out and kept passing out, and we couldn't figure out why. And the long story short, I ended up being like bedridden for almost a year and needed help to get up to go to the bathroom. Like I couldn't do anything.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really scary. And he stuck by me, took care of me the whole time, with my parents and stuff, of course, everybody driving me back and forth from doctor's appointments and all that while, he's working. And then everybody's like, I was like a kid, like everybody was like taking turns with me and stuff. And he just if someone needed to walk me to the bathroom, he helped me get up. Cause one of the things I was dealing with was vertigo. So I was vomiting. I had vertigo really bad. I was blacking out. It was really, really, really intense.
So that's a challenge.
Yeah, that's another challenge. Yeah. And so, so that was something that was really, really scary. And that was kind of life shattering in a way, because I didn't know all of these things I was just outlining of all these things I knew I was going to be pursuing in my future, film career and all of that. I didn't know if it would be possible anymore because I couldn't stand. I mean, and one of the things that, one of my symptoms was I couldn't stand for more than a couple minutes because the blood would pool down into my legs and would make me get really, really dizzy. And then, of course, if I didn't sit down or anything, I'd pass out. And so really, really crazy stuff. And and so we found out basically I have POTS, so postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, some other autoimmune fun stuff in there too. And so he's been, not only has he been really supportive of my career overarchingly, but also through all of my health challenges, because when he said through sickness and health, he really, really meant it.
He
Like,
knew what he was saying.
yeah, I mean, even on our wedding day, I was still dealing with this stuff. And a lot of people didn't know. A lot of people to this day still don't know.
Wow.
And I came down, of course, with a raging sinus infection the night before. So that helped with the dizziness and vertigo too, right? You know, like that's exactly what I needed. And he was so great. He worked with all the vendors to like get things coordinated, like behind the scenes. I had hot flashes like crazy. And so he had people like bring in fans behind our sweetheart table so I can cool off, and stuff to be put under the table so I can keep my legs elevated. Just really amazing. So as far as allies go, he was one of my number ones for sure. And still is. And yeah, my parents, my sisters. Another one would be my grandma. She, I mean, just as supportive of me as my dad. Like that's never faded. She, because she's my grandma, I probably got even more leniency. I probably got a little bit more of that like spoiled part of it and stuff. But so great. She let me take over her house not once, but twice. Because when I was living down in Fort Myers with her, that's where I started taking over her house for Mary Kay things, right? And then when Justin and I were visiting my family so much up here in Orlando, she was like, I don't think I want to be like just down here when you guys move up there. So I would just move up there too. So she and I ended up moving up together just down the street. So my parents, I'm pointing this way because I'm 2 houses down from my parents right now. They're right there. My grandma is about 5 minutes down that way. Same street, it just changes names.
Okay.
And so, yeah. So we kept tight. We're very tight knit. And so I took over that house too with a little bit of Mary Kay stuff, and then it ended up being more filmmaking equipment and stuff too. So there was this sunroom that she let me take over as my office, brought in, rolled in my camera gear and all of that. Yeah, so she's been an amazing ally. She's been so supportive with all of my career stuff, school stuff. You know, she's very scholastic. So she was very happy to help me with my, studying and things like that. And so another big ally in my life for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So how do the people who aren't in your tight-knit, highly supportive, wonderful, amazing, talented family, how do the people outside of that deal with all of your amazing creativity and energy?
I don't know. I think there's a mixture. I think there's some people who genuinely enjoy it. They like being a part of it. We're a very big accepting family. So there's definitely people that we've kind of adopted as family members who are not blood, that really do appreciate that creativity and that support and that sort of thing. We definitely have our haters. I mean, I can think of a few people that don't dig what we're about. They don't agree with our life choices, don't, stuff like, some of the girls being homeschooled, just like random things like that are not as appreciated, that creativity. I think though we really focus on being home team. And so I know that's something, especially like as Justin and I, have been newlyweds and stuff, that's something that we really consciously practice on, is to make it more about like us against the world versus us against each other in the world, that sort of thing. So really trying to focus on being home team, because we're going to screw up and there's going to be choices that we make that probably weren't the best choices, and it's just all a big learning experience. And so having that support as a like really conscious choice, I think is what matters a lot. And so even if the people who I can think of that are not as into that whole thing, come against us, it's okay, because us against the world, we're home team.
Right. Wow. So here's a surprise pop question.
Okay.
What's your favorite part about your business?
So, okay, first, which business? That's a valid question.
Right. So you still have the Beauty Birds business going?
I graduated all of my clients with that. I now do more of a coaching with my Kick Your Butts in Business program and all that. So I do that. Sin is the intellectual property that we're growing right now, the performances and all of that. So we can go with that one if you want.
Yeah, what's that? Go with that. What's your favorite part of that?
Yeah, so my favorite part of it, aside from just getting to have it as, a way that I get to play and filmmaking and all that, is it really plays into my mental health advocacy. It is a heavy story. It's a story of hope and healing, and it's very heavy. It deals with things like depression and suicide and all of that. Mm-hmm. And so I like that I've been able to come in. One of my roles was to bring some comic relief in there. And so as we were doing some rewrites, Dad put in all the heartfelt stuff that he really wanted the audience to feel and to know and all of that. And so then I got to come in with more of that outside lens. And as someone who didn't live through the experiences that he's writing about, I get to come in and add a little bit more of like some comical characters and add some light moments and some more romantic moments and some touching moments and those sort of things to kind of elevate the mood a little bit.
Right.
I'm most excited about seeing, as we're fully rolling everything out, the way it impacts other people and the way it brings people together in a way of understanding and realizing that, we're not alone. I think especially in modern times right now, it's so easy to feel isolated and to feel like no one understands what you're going through. No one can put themselves in your shoes. And while everybody has their own experience in a unique way, there are people that can absolutely relate to what you're going through and have been there and know what you're feeling and all of that. And so I'm really excited to see that community aspect from the fans come around the story itself and seeing that grow. When we were doing our first performance to secure the trademark and all of that, there were numerous teenagers, young adults that were in the audience. And afterwards, we had everybody fill out a survey. And the responses that we got in the survey part of, what were some of the takeaways from the performance itself, people talking about, like, I realized like I'm absolutely not alone in my experiences and I have a deeper compassion for other people. I realize I have more control over my destiny. Just like the things that you just want to scream to the next generation, where it's like, no, like you can change this. You do get a say in your life and all of that. To see that come to life then on such a small scale was really exciting. And so as it's all unfolding on an even bigger scale, that's what I'm really most enjoying. That potential right now I get to live in of, all of the lives that will be touched and hopefully be put on a healing journey after seeing the performances and the books that come out with it too.
Wonderful. Well, this has been an even better interview than your dad's.
Thank you. I will make sure I tell him that.
No, this has been fabulous.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed having you on the show. Really appreciate that you've made the time and all of this wonderful creativity. We will have links to all of the stuff that Vic's been talking about in the show notes, and we'll even have some links down below here. And follow along. I'll have to say, Victoria, you probably don't know this, but I'm a failed suicide myself.
Got it.
19 years. And so, yes, when people talk about teen suicide, it's like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
It's there's the It Gets Better project. There's the You Are Not Alone project. There's lots of these things. And, I will say, if anybody in my audience knows anybody who is having difficulty, get help. Seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. It's scary how prevalent it is and how common it is. And while there are some resources that can help, we have to, as a culture, create a different atmosphere around that and take more preventative measures to make sure that people aren't feeling those things right from the beginning. And so because of all of that, I've been there too. I've experienced these things too. That's also opening up my philanthropy route. There's multiple nonprofits that I'm starting in light of that. So I'll keep you updated.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the idea of getting it sort of slipping in, the sugar with it as entertainment to really raise awareness. That is absolutely fabulous. So Thank you once again for being on my show. Thank you, my viewers, for watching The Sweet Sound of Success. What are your dreams for your business? You know what drives me crazy? Really smart business owners denying their talents because they've been taught it has to be hard, because they've been taught that they don't deserve their gifts, that they're not worth anything. They've been taught that their gender means they can't express their genius. I'm Sue Wilhite, and I want you to have access to your genius. I want you to go out and rock the world with your genius. So I created the Call to Action coaching program. It's all about getting to the heart of you and what you've got to share with the world to make a profitable business that thrives and allows you to make a difference in the world. Click the link to sign up for the Call to Action coaching program today. Don't let your genius go unnoticed.